Divine warning by the prophet for the nations. The citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, are of one family bearing one free national name. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classed as undesirables and are subject to all inferior names and abuses, mistreatments that the citizens care to bestow upon them. And it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the names and principles that allude to slavery. I, the prophet, was prepared by the great God Allah to warn my people to repent from their sinful ways and go back to that state of mind of their forefathers, divine and national principles, that they will be law abiders and receive their divine right as citizens according to their free national constitution that was prepared for all free national beings. They are to claim their own free national name and religion. There is but one issue for them to be recognized by this government and of the earth, and it comes only through the connection of the Moorish divine and national movement. Hold on, it's a couple people trying to get in. Huh? One sec, I gotta mute somebody. Somebody in the background. All righty. Sorry about that. There is but one issue for them to be recognized by this government and of the earth, and it comes only through the connection of the Moorish divine national movement, which is incorporated in this government and recognized by all other nations of the world. And through it, they and their children can receive their divine rights unmolested by other citizens, that they can cast a free national ballot at the polls under the free national constitution of the state's government and not under a granted privilege, as has been the existing condition for many generations. You who doubt whether I, the prophet, and my principles are right for the redemption of my people, go to those who know law in the city hall and among the officials in your government and ask them under an intelligent tone, and they will be glad to render you a favorable reply, for they are glad to see me bring you out of darkness into light. Money doesn't make the man. It is free national standards and power that makes a man and a nation. The wealth of all national governments, gold and silver and commerce belong to the citizens alone. And without your national citizenship by name and principles, you have no true wealth. And I am hereby calling on all true citizens that stand for a national free government and the enforcement of the Constitution to help me in my great missionary work, because I need all support from all true American citizens of the United States. Help me save my people who have fallen from the constitutional laws of government. I am depending on your support to get them back to the constitutional fold again, that they will learn to love instead of hate and will live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, supporting our free national constitution for the United States of America. I love my people, and I desire their unity and mine back to their own national and divine standard, because day by day they have been violating the national and constitutional laws of their government by claiming names and principles that are unconstitutional. If Italians, Greeks, English, Chinese, Japanese, Turks, and Arabians are forced to proclaim their free national name and religion before the constitutional government of the United States, it is no more than right that the law should be enforced upon all other American citizens alike. In all other governments, when a man is born and raised there and asks for his national descent name, and if he fails to give it, he is misused, imprisoned, or exiled. Any group of people that fail to answer up to the constitutional standards of law by name and principles, because to be a citizen of any government, you must claim your national descent name, because they place their trust upon issues and names formed by their forefathers. The word Negro alludes in the Latin language to the word nigger, the same as the word colored alludes to anything that is painted, varnished, and dyed. And every nation must bear a national descent name of their forefathers, because honoring thy fathers and thy mothers, your days will be lengthened upon the earth. These names have never been recognized by any true American citizens of this day. Through your free national name, you are known and recognized by all nations of the earth that are recognized by said national government in which they live. The 14th and 15th Amendment brought the North and South in unit, placing the Southerners who were at that time without power with constitutional body of power. And at that time, 1865, the free national constitutional law that was enforced since 1774 declared all men free and equal. And if men are declared by the free national constitution to be free and equal, since that constitution has never been changed, there is no need for the application of the 14th and 15th Amendment for the salvation of our people and citizens. So there isn't but one supreme issue for my people to use to redeem which was lost, and that is through the above statements. Then the lion and the lamb can lie down together in yonder hills, and neither will be harmed, because love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice will be reigning in this land. In those days, the United States will be one of the greatest civilized and prosperous governments of the world. But if the above principles are not carried out by my citizens and by, by my people in this government, the worst is yet to come, because the great God of the universe is not pleased with the works that are being performed in North America by my people. And this great sin must be removed from the land to save it from enormous earthquakes, diseases, etc. And I, the prophet, do hereby believe that this administration of government, being more wisely prepared by more genius citizens that believe in their free national constitution and laws, and through the help of such classes of citizens, I, the prophet, truly believe that my people will find the true and divine way of their forefathers and learn to stop serving carnal customs and merely ideas of man that have never done them any good, but have always harmed them. So I, the prophet, am hereby calling aloud with a divine plea to all true American citizens to help me to remove this great sin which has been committed and is being practiced by my people in the United States of America, because they know it is not the true and divine way. And without understanding, they have fallen from the true light into utter darkness of sin. And there is not a nation on earth today that will recognize them socially, religiously, politically, or economically, etc., in their present condition of their endeavorment, in which they themselves try to force upon a civilized world. They will not refrain from their sinful ways of action, and their deeds have brought Jim Crowism, segregation, and everything that brings harm to human beings on earth. And they fought the Southerner for all these great misuses. But I have traveled in the South and examined conditions there, and it is the works of my people continuously practicing the things that bring dishonor, disgrace, and disrespect to any nation that lives the life. And I am hereby calling on all true American citizens for moral support and finance to help me in my great missionary work to bring my people out of darkness to the marvelous light from the prophet, Islam. Let me check the chat to make sure I greet everybody before I continue. Islam, Brother DL. Islam.
Islam. Islam.
Islam, Brother Carlton. Beverly.
Blessings, Islam, brother.
Islam, Lisa Anderson. Peace and love.
Hey, everybody.
It's brother.
Okay, so I'll continue.
Peace and love, Morris.
Oh, peace and love, Brother Hassan, Amari Bay.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Peace and love, everybody.
Nanel,
Brother
peace and love.
Islam.
Peace and love, Islam, brother.
Islam Morris.
Islam.
Divine Constitution of Moorish America. Grand Sheik and the chairman of Moorish America are empowered to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the grand body of Moorish America. The assistant Grand Sheik is to assist the Grand Sheik in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known before the citizens of Moorish America. All meetings are to be opened and closed promptly according to the Circle 7, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Friday is our holy day of rest, because on Friday the first man was formed in flesh, and on Friday the first man departed out of flesh and ascended into his Father God Allah. For that cause, Friday is the holy day for all Muslims all over the world. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed and practiced by all citizens of Moorish America. No citizen is to put in danger or accuse falsely his brother or sister on any occasion at all that may harm his brother or sister, because Allah is love. All citizens must preserve these holy and divine laws, and all citizens must obey the laws of the government, because by being a Moorish American, you are part and parcel of the government and must live the life accordingly. No organization of Moorish America is to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws and constitution of the said government, but obey hereby. With us, all citizens must proclaim their nationality, and we're teaching our people their nationality and divine creed, that they may know that they are part and parcel of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, Black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasting until 1865 during the time of slavery. This is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the said government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Jew Ali, the prophet, to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. All citizens must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and parcel of all uplifting acts of Moorish America. Moorish Americans must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of Moorish America, and then you were entitled to the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This is the divine covenant from your holy prophet, Noble Jew Ali, through the guidance of his father, Allah. Islam. Brother Justin, peace and love. How you doing over there?
Peace and love. Peace and love. I'm doing well. How's everyone else?
All is well.
Fantastic.
well.
Peace and
Pretty
love.
good, pretty good. It's Monday.
Thanks to the mothers, Islam.
Islam, brother.
Okay, so today I wanted to transition into an overview of international mind frame when dealing with, first of all, knowing who you are, knowing your culture, knowing you got a nationality, then you become part of a body or, the next level organization for the purpose of, land and resources, right? Government structure, creating an estate, thing that can be passed down under a national jurisdiction, right? I.e. nationalization. So this overview, I don't know the scope of El Hajj. Most people know him as Noble Jew Ali. I don't know how much background everybody in here knows about, what he did and what he accomplished. So here's an overview. And you're gonna start seeing that it's international in scope. Prophet Noble Jew Ali proclaiming the Moorish Americans as a sovereign nation in Cuba, Havana, Cuba. So he was at an international meeting equivalent to what's called the United Nations today. It was no United Nations back at this time. But Noble Jew Ali was on an international platform as an ambassador for the Moors that he woke up. Because remember, it was like 20,000 more than quote unquote Chicago alone in one area. It was a jurisdiction that was created, a time before it was a Federal Reserve note. He was around when it was gold and silver, bartering system. You know, the mind frame of the people was a little different back then. But nonetheless, he was on the international platform representing as an ambassador, basically like a sultan, an elected official. You know, and at this international platform, you got other nation states, right? You got the head of Venezuela, Cuba, Belize, Ecuador, right? So you can't do that if you're Black, Negro, color, Latino. It's no ambassador for that on an international level, because those are nationalities. So just to give you insight on things Noble Jew Ali was doing in the 1920s. So the holy and illustrious prophet Noble Jew Ali was born January 8th, 1886. Amongst his sleeping Moorish American nation. During those days, all Moors born in the United States were state certified to be commercial property under the All Persons Born Clause of the 14th Amendment. And that's why the Divine Warning talks about the 14th Amendment, and the 15th Amendment is not necessary for the salvation of our people, because that puts you under commercial jurisdiction as if you're property. So Jew Ali is pictured here holding the flags of Morocco and the United States. Normally, when Jew Ali displayed either flag, they were hung in the science of national distress or weakness, or upside down or backwards. Here, although Jew Ali's posture is an upright sitting position, notice his legs are crossed, left over right, symbolizing both countries are in adversity. This picture was taken during the 1928 Pan American Conference, hosted by Havana, Cuba. The quote-unquote Panama was placed upon Ali's head by the president of Cuba. So the brother sombrero, basically, what he's wearing on his head, was given to him by the president of Cuba. So we have background now on why and how Noble Jew Ali was wearing this sombrero on this most famous picture. When Noble Jew Ali arrived and registered in Havana, he autographs his high name of El Haj Sharif Abdul Ali, given to him by Sultan Abdul Aziz, Ibu of the Saudi family, upon completing the pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca. So we're talking about government structure. That's why I say essentially Noble Jew Ali was the Sultan of the Moors at the Pan American Conference. And he got the keys passed down to him by a sultan that was still under empire government structure as late as the 1920s. Right, we're talking about government structure, treaties. Given to him by Sultan Abdul Aziz we just read that. The event occurred during so this is 1912. This was earlier than the 1920s. That event occurred during 1912, shortly after receiving the Kemetic Adept degree of prophet from the noblest authorities of the ancient Egyptian order. It was there he was bestowed the name of faithful or Muslim in order to be accepted to the holy city of Mecca. Was Noble Jew Ali ever a Mason? No. The accuracy of the above dates of his divine ministry on earth alone dispels all Western rumors begun by scandalmongers about Noble Jew Ali being a Western Freemason A mastermind, yes. A Mason, no. Further proof, he was 16 in 1902 when he left the USA and was 5 years too young to join the Masonic Lodge. 10 years later, by the time Ali returned as a holy prophet, he was too angelic and all-knowing to cut down to Masonry. Right? His degrees was too high. He was 720. No angel can be made into a Mason, but by diluting Drew Ali's image into a nationless Negro lodges, his Western haters would appear to be successful distorting the scatteredness of his prophethood in the mind of his people. Right? So if you can scatter the mind of the people to think, oh, Freemason Lodge, you're taking away from international law, elected official, and a nation state. All the people involved got nationalities. So what that's going to do is take you back to international law, rights of indigenous people. It's a different jurisdiction than a colonial jurisdiction. Now you got to talk about the treaties. Now you got to distinguish, right? It deludes you, it kind of blurs the mirrors. To keep talking about, oh, he was a Mason. That's a distraction. Of course, the insertion of these Grand Lodges, principles of segregation, began after Drew Ali departed out of flesh, July 20th, 1929. The clandestine infiltration of the Western Masonic orders would create massive confusion and self-hatred within the ranks of the Moors. As members, his flocks would be scattered, temples disunited, and national constitution of his government will be overthrown for nearly a century after the prophet left his body. Because of the influence of Western Freemasonry, Noble Drew Ali's message to the world has often been confined away from the public by the strictest secrecy, under a disguise of religious memberships and civic duties. The now Masonic-based Moorish Science Temple of America organizations will claim feigned ownership of all Moorish Americans. In the reality, Drew Ali had founded the MSTA under the First Amendment as a teaching institution to reach his supreme duty of a prophet, which is to save nations from the wrath of Allah. His MSTA, or Moorish Science Temple of America, was a means to reach the infinite salvation and freedom of a clean and pure nation. So the purpose of religion is to give our people character, morals, because the Black Negro colors that he was interfacing did not have that. Once you go back to the divine warning, he's saying, I'm seeing the conditions of my people. Their actions are bringing disgrace and dishonor to any nation on this earth. Their actions and needs, their low vibrational activity. So you have to bring a religion to a people that fell that far to a low vibration. He had the supreme info. But it doesn't stop there. Right? Once you get that, now you know what's next. Unifying, setting up businesses, setting up trusts, knowing international law to know that you got land rights and inheritance. And you move as a unit, just like you see back to the classic example, Chinatown, Koreatown, Little Bangladesh, Indonesia, Little Saigon. Everybody that know their culture, you see how they work together. It's ancient principles. So the Noble Drew Ali was trying to get ancient back. That's why he keeps saying the ancient mind state. We got to get back to the ancient mind state, because ancient mind state is knowing your culture, having honor, working with your people in real time, organizing, right? And now nobody's in poverty like that. Everybody working together, centralize the finances, right? So that's what Noble Drew Ali brought to the table. So that's, long story short, it's not just a religious movement. Civics has to come into play. And like as you can see, this man was in Cuba at an international conference as an ambassador. And as you can see, a sultan bestowed information upon him. He came back. And you see the missionary work that he did after that, right? There's literature where they say Noble Drew Ali was a prophet and a general. So we talk about government structure. It's not just a religious organization like it's a church. You talk about nationality, political status, right? So nevertheless, MSTA member Charles Kirkland Bay, master polyglot, although was not an adept, acted as a Pan-American chief interpreter for the Holy Prophet. Also attending were several tribal chiefs of the continental Americas and Secretary of State Hugh of the corporate USA. He was in awe of the pure divinity of the Moorish Americans' Constitution de jure. Also, there were free national delegates from Central and South Americas and adjoining islands. During the conference, Noble Drew Ali was given the North America Mandate for the land, which the United States has been occupying illegally since 1881. This mandate is now in Geneva, Switzerland, awaiting its proclamatory status of the Moorish nation. While attending the 1928 Pan American Conference for Indigenous Nations, Noble Drew Ali did indeed attach the Moorish Americans to the free national powers of the earth. During his appearance in Havana, Cuba, Drew Ali registered the Moorish Americans as a new generic nation with a free national constitution de jure. This demonstration brought to light his religious Moorish Science Temple of America organization was created to be a non-governmental organization and had no nature function at the Pan American Conference of the Nation, Tribes, and Families. All right, so Noble Drew Ali, when he was at the Pan American Conference, he wasn't saying Moorish Science Temple of America. He was coming as an elected official for a nationality of people as an ambassador. Domestically, he's saying, for the street corner, so people can come into this government structure. It's Moorish Science Temple of America. It was a conduit to get you back to empire, get you back to treaty. It was a segue. And in the midst of that segue, he's teaching you religion and creed, because we're talking to Negroes, Blacks, colors, Latinos, Hispanics. They're in a low vibratory state, right? So it's levels to it. He was slow walking.
It's an interjection. So as Noble Drew Ali is building it, he's teaching us at the same time. Wow. Honest to Noble Drew Ali.
Right. This wasn't that long ago. This wasn't like, thousands of years ago. All right, let me see where I leave off. All right. This demonstration brought to light his religious MST organization, established to be a non-governmental organization and had no nature function at the Pan American Conference of Nations, like I just explained, right? All right. So NGOs, which like we just established, are not nations. That's why I just wanted to explain the Moorish Science Temple of America, the segue to get you into the nation state, right? The conference was not about any religious concerns, but certain unalienable rights guaranteed to the human family and nation. So this is what Noble Drew Ali was talking about: human rights for people that know their nationality in North America. And matter of fact, it's over 50,000 of them. They woke and were unified over here, specifically in quote unquote Chicago, Detroit, Indiana, right? The Midwest. This is where Noble Drew Ali did most of his great work. It woke up to most people, and he inherited Marcus Garvey's 20,000 after he went to jail and all that. So he had a lot of people woke in a centralized area working together, right? It wasn't just meeting on Sunday or whatnot, playing church. It was actually every day. They had land, businesses, medicine, herbs, infrastructure, right? It was like a town, like back to Chinatown, Koreatown. It was a Moorish town in that time. and it was huge, right? So he was on an international level as an ambassador for our people as a sultan, right? And then that's when you start thinking about, okay, what are El Hadi and Malik, like Malcolm, most people know him as Malcolm X, right? What's the common theme here? They both went to an international platform and either learned something or had an agenda to create something, right? That's the whole point. You got to have a nationality and an international mind frame. All right. In reality, Drew Ali had founded the MST. I read that already. In these days, the Moorish comprehended very little of all their prophet has brought to them. During the post-conference years, the USA's refusal to yield the hallowed soil to the Moorish would result in a high warning from Prophet Noble Joe Ali, the Holy Prophet, where he said, quote, "Until my Moors are free in their own home, the worst is yet to come. The United States owes the Moors a great deal. They must be made to pay and pay with compound interest. They have but one more war to win," unquote. The next year, Joe Ali left the body saying, quote, "I can better fight the rest of this battle on the soul plane where Satan could not hide," unquote. Within the following 12 years, the stock market had crashed. Illuminati's Black Pope and Federal Reserve Bank had taken over the fake sovereignty of the corporate United States, and an economical drought called the Great Depression would break the economical stability of every citizen except for the heads of the 10 families. So all this happened after the transition of Noble Drew Ali. The fact there was no Federal Reserve notes in circulation at the time of Noble Drew Ali's tenure is amazing to me, just to think about that. As if it was not enough to soften her hardened heart, the USA would be functioning under perpetual maritime law that would go into effect within 4 years, 1933. Worse yet, who heard Drew Ali's prophecy? Right. He keeps saying the worst is yet to come. So all this happened after. So the divine warning that we read in the beginning of the meeting, this was all before all this stuff.
Y'all doing, motherfucker? I know.
All right. So who heard Drew Ali's prophecy? The United States has but one more war to win. And to this day, after 50 years in Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Iraq, the USA has not won another war since World War II. One of Ali's last warning was, "If you do not believe I am a prophet, watch my prophecies." Surely, with this unprecedented bio, who can deny Drew Ali is indeed Allah's last and greatest prophet? So I just wanted to read that compilation. I don't know how much background people knew about Noble Drew Ali and the things he was responsible for and his activities on an international level. They don't really talk too much about this man. You know, a lot of the stuff is in the FBI vaults of his work. You know, so the stuff that's left behind is not that much. You know, so Elia, are you up there in India? Okay, yeah, you out there in the Midwest. Okay, so let me continue the presentation. I wanted to highlight something. Let me mute somebody's mic because it's kind of somebody's over here. The brother. Okay, that was you, Brother Carlton. Yeah, it was kind of echoing in the background. I'm just gonna mute you until you have something to say. Just just chime in. So I want to highlight. We talked about this before, but the Great Law of Peace. Ananawasi Confederation, commercially called Iroquois Confederation. One of the 5 Moorish tribes that settled their differences and formed a union because the foreigner was starting to come over here and for a lot of other reasons, right? So the Great Tree of Peace, right, was created in certain flags that have the Great Tree of Peace in it, represents just that, right? It's the same Tree of Peace in the flag of Lebanon right now, because we was over there too as Moors. But the Iroquois Confederation flag has a tree in the middle symbolizing Great Tree of Peace and 5 tribes of our people settling their differences and coming together. So that's the reason I'm highlighting this, because I brought up some stuff last week as far as how we passed things down through the matriarch. And I couldn't find the article, but I highlighted the article today, and we can use this for reference points of how we conducted ourselves in government structure. All right, so this is the concept, Article 17 of this Constitution. The right of bestowing the title shall be hereditary in the family of the females legally possessing the bunch of shell strings, and the string shall be the token that the female of the family has a proprietary, and we know proprietary, right? That means land ownership, right to the lordship title for all time to come. So that's one example. This is in the Constitution that we created. And this is just cross-referencing for the scope of like matriarchal, from another lens to show how all things, even the chiefs or crown chiefs, it was a council of women that even ordained the chiefs and the heads of our government. So it may look patriarchal because a man's at the head, but it's really matriarchal because the council of women appointed the head. But if you don't know government structure or the culture, you may not know that. If he refuses, the woman holding the title shall immediately select another candidate for the title, right? So think about this. It was chiefs that wasn't accepting the position, right? The women had to elect another chief, right? No lord shall be asked more than once to attend the Confederate Council, Council of Women, right? To elect the chiefs. Or we say really sheiks in Arabic, to elect the sheiks, right? That's matriarch. All life comes through the womb, and that reflects through government structure, right? That's nature's law. I had another one. I think it was, So Article 44, the lineal descent of the people of the 5 nations shall run through the female line. Women shall be considered the progenitors or the bloodline inheritors, if you look that word up, of the nation. They shall own the land and the soil. Men and women shall follow the status of the mother. So this is in the Constitution. And mind you, George Washington and all the founding fathers of the United States, when they came here, they they looked how we ran our government and utilized that in the formation of their government through the Articles of Confederation and things of this nature. So before it was George Washington, you had Benjamin Banneker Bay, John Henson, and a couple other brothers, highly melanated brothers, that he pretty much watched and took notes on, right? That's why they always say, he's the 9th president, because people that really know what's going on knows he's the 9th president, but they promote him like he's the first because they'll bury all this information. The Moorish Empire, the treaties, Moors being indigenous to the land, right? And I like to use this classic example, Title 29, Delaware Code. This tells you right here, you can't, if the Lenape Indians were formerly known as the Moors, that means all the Indians were referred to the Moors or as Moors. That means Moors was more proper than saying Indian, right? No matter what the tribe, Cherokee, right? So, and the reason why that's important, because now we go into these treaties now, right? We can go into, right, all these treaties that our people are responsible for, right? Right, we got treaties in 1786, which most of us know. So let's highlight some of the things that are in these treaties. Who are the people involved in these treaties? Treaty of Peace and Friendship, 1786. Before the Constitution was created, who was involved? John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson. Who were they? Elected officials amongst their people to negotiate treaties with the people of the land. Elected official. Right? This is a treaty of peace and friendship established between us and the United States of America, which is confirmed, in which we have order to be written in this book and sealed with our royal seal at our court of Morocco on the 25th day of the blessed month of Shaban in our year 1200, trusting in God, it will remain permanent, right? Two nations enter into a treaty. If any more shall bring citizens of the United States, right? We don't got to go on no more. It's a treaty between Moors and the United States, right? Distinguishing two citizens, two separate nations of people enter into the treaty. One nation is at home, can invoke the rights of indigenous people. Got documented history of having an empire over here. Documented history of working with the Pilgrims' bosses and higher ups. Who were the Pilgrims' bosses and higher ups? Queen Elizabeth, King James, King Louis. What happened when? Why is that important? Because that relationship between King James and King Louis allowed their subject citizens, their Slavs, to carry out jail sentences in colonies on the east coast of America. What were those colonies called? Jamestown, Louisiana, New York, Virginia, right? Delaware. 13 colonies sprung up based on the relationship with our Sultan and various crown, right? Which allowed the Pilgrims to come over here. And we already know these Pilgrims got mad later, right? And didn't want to pay taxes to their organized government no more, right? We knew that, right? They declared their independence, Articles of Confederation, right? We know the commercial story. So after that, these Europeans is over here in America now. They're a separate entity. They enter into a treaty with the Moors, Treaty of Peace and Friendship. We're going over the terms and conditions right now. We're going over the treaty. But if you don't know this, you're gonna be like, oh, now you know you can't be a U.S. citizen, right? If you have a nationality, unless you're saying I'm part of the Pilgrim crew, right? That came over here. But clearly, that's not the case, right? So we're going through the terms and conditions of the treaty. Or I highlighted, things are highlighted here, the terms and conditions. There's a couple of things I have highlighted, but once again, I recommend everybody go through the whole treaty in its entirety. I'm just things that are highlighted here is just that caught the eye. If any of the citizens of the United States or any persons under their protection shall have any disputes with each other, the council shall decide. Now, when you're talking council, that's back to government structure, right? These are ambassadors for a nation state that are competent in law. So, right? And when you read Article 3 of the Constitution, it's going to talk about that, right? Talking about jurisdictions are decided based on if it's a dispute with a separate nation of people, federal court, right? That's a federal jurisdiction, right? So it's imperative that we know this. So if there's ever a situation that you can lay the foundation that you know this stuff, that you're competent, right? And you're going to get on the public record. It's going to go a certain way. The more competent you are in these colorable venues, the more pressure you put on them, right? And it's all situational. Like, it's all divine. It's not like, you out here doing crazy stuff and trying to get out, using the Moorish movement to get out of it. It's not going to work like that. Typically, government structure mean you're part of a body. You have allegiance to it. You're getting sharp on history and law, like, while you're amongst it. So you can be back to the constitutional bylaws. do uplifting acts, because the more competent that the members in the dojo are, when we go out, we're gonna be excellent missionaries. We're gonna be vibrating and magnetic. You know, people gonna want to come up to you because you're interesting. You're vibe, you know, and then you just gonna give them the light and let them know why they need to join or that why they need to come and be part of the fold. You know, and now they're competent. Now they know their nationality and birthrights. So I'm gonna go through a couple more things in this treaty. If a citizen of the United States should kill or wound a Moor, or on the contrary, if a Moor shall kill or wound a citizen of the United States, the law of the country shall take place, and equal justice shall be rendered. The council assisting at the trial, and if any delinquent shall make his escape, the council shall not be answerable for him in any matter. So a couple of things I want to highlight is they keep using council, not bar member, not attorney at law, council. That's an ambassador of a nation state. Once again, referencing Article 3, any disputes between two separate nations, Supreme Court or a court of federal jurisdiction. Okay, so that's one treaty. Another treaty, it was multiple. This one in 1795. And the language is a little different right here. So in this treaty signed at Algiers, and Article 1 is talking about the Bashar Day of Algiers, right? So Algiers, so this to show you how it's an empire, because Algiers is not in the Americas. Algiers is what most people call North Africa right now today. They'll be like, that's North Africa. So in 1795, it was a treaty that still affected this side of the world in the Americas, right? Because it was all connected as late as 1796. All right. So our noble titles, Bey, Day, Ali, Al, El, right? So Basha Day of Algiers, his divan and subjects. Whoever doesn't know what a divan, that's basically like a cabinet of government, and like imperial divan. That's a sign of government structure. All right. So I was going to highlight some things in here because I want to show the international ramifications of saying Moor versus it's just a religious group or whatnot, right? So even in this treaty, council, no citizen of the United States of North America shall be obligated to purchase any goods against his will. The Council of the United States of North America or any other citizen shall not be answerable for debts contracted by any of their own nation unless previously they have given a written obligation to do so. Any disputes or suits at law that may take place between the subjects of the Regency and the citizens of the United States of America shall be decided by the day. See, look, all disputes decided by the day. Who's the day? A Moorish elected official. So that shows you the pecking order of jurisdiction for us, who is inferior in status, in person and no other. Any disputes that may arise between citizens of the United States shall be decided by the council, as they are, in such cases, not subject to the laws of this regency. And that's tied into Article 3. Once again, these principles and these treaties. So Article 3 and Article 6 of the Constitution are a segue to get you into this international space of dealing with the different nation states and diplomacy. All right, so I'm just going through. That was my major point, is to stress that in this context. So now I wanted to jump into some case law and why that's important. Was there any thoughts? Anybody have any thoughts? Any statements before I continue on here?
I'm gonna tell you, last time since we spoke, I jumped back in and I did my research, and I just say I'm glad that I did this. And I don't know if I don't know if uh, what y'all call my brother, Dael told you, you know what I'm saying, I'm ready to do this. So it's right on point, brother. Just wanna let you know, all this makes perfect sense.
What do you,
Islam. Islam's
oh,
beautiful, man.
Islam, brother, Islam.
Can you hear me?
Brother Elian, you got something?
Islam Mahid. I apologize. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you go back to Article 16 on the 1795 treaty? Article 16.
Article 16. Okay, let me go back.
Yeah, can you just read that one out? Because every time I flip over, it turns off the speaker.
Article
Not
16.
Number 16.
Article 16. Should any citizen of the United States of North America kill, wound, or strike a subject of this regency, he shall be punished in the same manner as a Turk.
Okay, there you go. It says it right there. United States of North America. It didn't say they were
Exactly. They're not Americans.
Americans. Right. So we can just use that article in the treaty just showing that they're part of the North American continent rather than the American.
And I'm glad you highlighted that because you see how they say Turk, because the Moor and the Turk is synonymous. They're the same people. So they're saying
Right.
they're gonna be held to the same disciplinary actions as the Moor or the Turk, right? So that's interesting.
There you go.
Any other comments, statements from anybody? Any other thoughts on any level? Before we continue here. Okay. All right. So res judicata, essentially Latin for saying a thing decided or adjudicated on, right? And it becomes case law. It was already decided upon a certain point. In general, a judgment is res judicata, not only as to all matters litigated and decided by it, but also as to all relevant issues which could have been, but were not raised and litigated in the suit. And case law to support that. The fundamental doctrine of res judicata rests at the core of our judicial system. The fundamental doctrine of res judicata is the constitutional mandate that all courts in the United States must give full faith and credit. The full faith and credit, reference Article 4, Section 1, dealing with that as well. Full faith and credit to the decisions of other courts, be they territorial, state, federal, or special tribunals. The Constitution, like I said earlier, Article 4, Section 1, again, full faith and credit principle furthers the goals of certainty, finality, and comity in legal dealings within our nation. Res judicata is a general and well-established doctrine conceived in the light of the maxim that the interest of the state requires that there be an end to litigation, a maxim which comports with common sense as well as public policy. The Federated Department Shores Incorporated versus Motif is a case that talks about just that, as well as these other case laws that I put bold right here. Res judicata is a principle or maxim in law that deals with cases already adjudicated in said cases, either quotes or the case itself is then used for substantiating the accuser or defendant's proof of claim, expressing of pre-existing rights, constitutional enforcement, the inherence of due process, or commanding the courts to act on a matter. make a decision, or issue a judgment or decree in your favor, etc. Res judicata, also known as claim preclusion, is the Latin term for a matter already judged and refers to either of two concepts in both civil law and common law legal systems. A case in which there has been a final judgment and is no longer subject to appeal, and the legal doctrine meant to bar or preclude continued litigation of a case on some issues between the same parties. In this latter usage, the term is synonymous with issue preclusion. In the case of res judicata, the matter cannot be raised again, either in the same court or in a different court. A court will use res judicata to deny reconsideration of a matter. The doctrine of res judicata is a method of preventing injustice to the parties of a case supposedly finished, but perhaps also or mostly a way of avoiding unnecessary waste of resources in court system. Res judicata does not merely prevent future judgments from contradicting earlier ones, but also prevents litigants from multiplying judgments and confusion. Res judicata includes two related concepts: claim preclusion and issue preclusion, also called collateral estoppel or issue estoppel. Though sometimes res judicata is used more narrowly to mean only claim preclusion. Claim preclusion bars a suit from being brought again on an event which was the subject of a previous legal cause of action that has already been finally decided between the parties or those in the privity with a party. Issue preclusion bars the relitigation of issues of fact or law that have already been necessarily determined by a judge or jury as part of an earlier case. Res judicata is intended to strike a balance between competing interests. Its primary purpose is to assure an efficient judicial system. A related purpose is to create repose and finality. Justice Stewart explained the need for this legal precept as follows. I'm not going to read that. I think we get the point. So here are some case laws. Now that y'all have a background on the importance of case law. So Abbott Laboratories versus Granite State Incorporated. What was the point of this case law? What became res judicata after? What became law after this case was over? What precedent was set? Let's see. So cross-key politics and the Constitution in the history of the United States, chapter whatever, and particularly as Professor Cross-Key has also pointed out, under a reading that the term, quote, laws include the common law. Okay, so it was established here that laws are synonymous with common law dealing with Constitution and treaty, all right? A federal decision on any substantive common law question would then become binding on all state courts. Federal or refusal of a state court to follow that decision would then pose a federal question. Okay, so let's analyze what Abbott Laboratories versus Granite State and Company is, what just happened here. So it was ruled upon that, one, laws are a creature of common law. Common law is a creature of Constitution and treaty. So that's law. That's one thing that was expressed. The second thing that was expressed was if laws are violated by state courts, then it's something called a federal question that takes place. It's called a federal question. Basically, the state court violated your constitutional rights under the guise of a penal code statute or ordinance. In that penal code statute or ordinance conflicted and violated your constitutional rights. So therefore, the federal question is raised. That's the lingo when you go to file a lawsuit in federal court. They're going to ask you a question like, why does your case need to be in federal court versus state court? And now you're going to know why. Why? For one, Article 3 of the Constitution said any disputes between two different citizens or two different nation states, Supreme Court or federal jurisdiction. That's one. Two, the state court violated your constitutional rights. And that's another reason why your case can go to federal court. So for as Moors, we would use both. For example. So that's that case law. Let's look at another case law. United States Supreme Court, Duffy versus Duke. The constitutional command of full faith and credit, as implemented by Congress, generally requires every state to give to a judgment at least the res judicata effect, which the judgment would be accorded in the state which rendered it. Res judicata is part of a national jurisprudence. It's part of national jurisprudence. The principles of res judicata apply to questions of jurisdiction, as well as to other issues, as well to jurisdiction of the subject matter as of the parties. So this was all in this case law, a Supreme Court case law at that, Duffy versus Duke. And what was talked about, how case law is connected to precedent, and that's connected to national jurisprudence. All right. So another case law, Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court, Maggie versus Moxley. Res judicata is the generic term for various doctrines by which a judgment in one action has a binding effect in another. All right, Hedgecock versus Hedgecock. What is they talking about in that court? In that case, this court has recognized that the doctrine of res judicata is most important in ensuring that judgments are conclusive, thus avoiding relitigation of issues that were or could have been raised in the original action. What is Anderson versus Phoenix saying? Application of the doctrine may serve to relieve parties of the cost and vexation of multiple lawsuits, conserve judicial resources, and by preventing inconsistent decisions, encourage reliance on adjudication. Right? So we're reading multiple case laws on how case law is looked at as have full faith and credit, and is looked at on the same standing as law. Why is this important? Is because when we go to documents or, rulings in South Carolina, let's talk about the Sundry Freed Moors Act, right? That's a case law. That's a public act. What's it saying in Sundry Freed Moors Act? Most of us already know, and whoever doesn't know, just let me know and I'll go over it again. But I think everybody knows the Sundry Freed Moors Act in this group right here. What's it saying in there? It's distinguishing what? Separation of who's a Moor and who's not, or a group of our people that were conscious that they were Moors, and it was ruled upon that no law of the state, i.e. today, penal code statutes, ordinances apply to them because they were under the jurisdiction and alliance of the Sultan. That's Sundry Freed Moors Act. That's a case law that has full faith and credit. All right, so this is just sharpening the tools on certain things. Of course, we were talking about nation state. It's a lot of tiers to it. We actually need to have a brotherhood and sisterhood. Actually feel a close bond, like the Quran says, Circle 7, bonds of affection. Right? We need that because we all come from one mother, right? So that's one level of it. Two, we need an economic centralization, right? Cohesiveness. This law that we're learning is really for defensive purposes. just to be competent, because you never know what situation you'll be in. But that's why it's important to be part of a body, because a body is not, there's so many levels to it, right? A body means it's elected officials. A body means it's people that's competent in law. A body means, you know, it's land and businesses trying to be manifested. You know, a body means is members in the organizations being missionaries to grow the organization. So with that, when things do happen on a where you're in court, where it's like, oh, I'm part of a, well, they call it a consulate or embassy. And as we know, you know, they call our elected officials, our sheiks, our competent members of our temple, they call them consular officers, right? And consular officers, like everybody in here should know from the Department of State in their manual, it's consul will be singular. And we just looked at the treaty, right? So that manual is once again a segue to the international platform to be the consul, and you're part of a body. So that's on that level. So it goes hand in hand, you know. First know your culture, you know, build something with the people, you know, get competent on international law, you know, but ultimately you got to plot and plan on economic moves as well. So keep your head on the swivel. There's a lot of things going on, you know, when you come to the side of the light, and you know, your allegiance is different, you know, what your interests are change. Right. So I'm gonna read a couple more case law.
Oh yeah, when I'm watching it, it's only when I have to tap. Just
Pacific States Tail and Tail Company versus Oregon Supreme Court case in 1912. An oligarchy or a democracy is equally unrepublican. Each was equally hateful to the founders of our government, and each is equally subversive of the structure which they entered. So here's a case law that's saying democracy is unrepublican. And once again, we're not saying the political party. So in a democracy is a two-party system, right? Republicans and Democrats. That's all democracy. But in a Republican form of government, the same nationality of people just elect people amongst themselves to do X, Y, Z. That's a Republican form of government, a republic distinguished from a democracy. So it's case law saying that democracy is unrepublican. So it's a direct opposition to a Republican form of government. So what that means is everything as far as the media, how they push, is going to make that look bad, you know, or try to scramble the people's minds on why you shouldn't be a part of that. You know, culture is bad. Matter of fact, let's knock off the chore and just call it a cult. That's a cult. Anything organized, anything prosperous, anything disciplined, you know, stay away from that. That's democracy. And why? So the select few can control and treat people like cattle, get them dependent on them. Right? We don't even know how to farm no more. We don't even know how to work the earth to feed yourself. Your grocery store could shut down right now. So you see how we done lost our way? That's the intention of democracy. Right? So it's case law to show that that's the case, right? That's the whole point. All right. We'll go into mental competence. And it's a law definitions. So competence determines your status. And that's funny because I believe everybody in here, we know that your nationality determines your political status, right? So it's funny how it's saying in a law dictionary how competence, status. Doesn't that make you think? Right. So competence or status concerns the mental capacity of an individual to participate in legal proceedings or transactions, and the mental condition a person must have to be responsible for his or her decisions or acts. Competence is an attribute that is decision specific, depending on various factors which typically revolve around mental function, integrity. An individual may or may not be competent to make a particular medical decision, a particular contractual agreement, to execute an effective deed to real property, or to execute a will having certain terms. Depending on the state, a guardian or conservator may be appointed by a court for a person who satisfies the state's test for general incompetence. And the guardian or conservator exercises the incompetence rights for the incompetent. Defendants who do not possess sufficient competence are usually excluded from criminal prosecution, while witnesses found to possess requisite competence cannot testify. So let's go into competence. Duly qualified, answering all requirements, having sufficient ability or authority, possessing the requisite natural or legal qualifications, able, adequate, suitable, sufficient, capable, a case law to support that. A testator may be said to be competent if he has mental capacity to understand the nature of his act, to understand and recollect the nature and situation of his property and his relations to persons having claims on his bounty and whose interests are affected by his will. So before we move on, so think about this. Competency. So the mere fact of knowing your nationality, your culture, that's one level of competency. Once you learn that history and you learn, once again, how we had an empire, how we had organized government, the international law, you start learning the Constitution, the rights of indigenous people. Okay, bam. And then you start saying, okay, before we get to that, we got to organize on a domestic level, right? And get a fluid organization. Businesses, land, we're farming, we're in a position to hire our people that are in our organization. Now that opens the door to all the other stuff that we know to be truly authority in law, right? Now you can literally go to City Hall and get land and resources for free, pursuant to the rights of indigenous people. But you have a divine test. Divine tests need to take place before you get the heavens that come with our inheritance. What's the test? Allegiance. Typically, people that have businesses, schools, their own people in hallucinated areas have passed the allegiance test. Because in order to manifest that much, to get it even to that where it's looking like that, I'm gonna keep bringing up Chinatown, Koreatown, little Bangladesh, because the wheels fall off. Because these are classic examples of how they got districts. And matter of fact, it's so many people in these concentrated areas where they become the mayors. They become the councilmen. Why? Because they have all the votes in that little small municipality. Now it's getting to the point where, okay, the police in the infrastructure, the best interest is for that specific nationality of people in that district. But something had to happen first before it got to that level, right? And back to Noble Drew Ali having Oscar the Priest. This was a Moorish American in office, an elected official representing the Moors. Why? Because it was 20,000 people in Chicago alone, Moors that knew who they were, working together. 20,000 in the municipality, quote unquote, zone of Chicago. 20,000 people working together, fezzes and turbans. They controlled the votes. Of course, they was going to get Oscar in, right? So this is the emphasis that needs to be talked about It's the nation state, the building. And that all start, and in order to get to that point, got to be some missionaries that's competent, the light bearers. We got to be amongst the people, letting them know that this exists, why it's important to unite, the great things that we can do. And we ain't got, like I said, we ain't got to save the world. 50 to 100 people, we can do great work if everybody bought in. Right? All right, so incompetency, lack of ability, legal qualification, or fitness to discharge the required duty. And I lost my train of thought. So back to trust law. In order to pass things down, somebody got to stay competent. You can't even have inheritance. Like, you got to be competent first to even teach your son or daughter something. Then he got to be competent to teach his son or daughter. Right? The community has to be competent, right? So it's a lot of levels, right? Contract law. And I love this. Minority deals with the mental state of person, its legal status. Infants are minors, but only until they grow, not only physically, but mentally. Right? And that is when they reach the status of majority. So even in contract law, the reason I highlight that, I like that because people ask questions about previous contracts that they were in and under their straw. And like I say, when you become conscious, you're gonna incompetent. You're gonna see that it was a fraudulent contract. And one of them is because minors can't enter into a contract. If you study contract 101, one of the basics is a minor cannot enter into a contract. So that's what you were, a minor. And once you become, you're gonna say, oh, it was a linear contract, 5 people involved in the contract, but only 1 signature. You're gonna start spotting fraud. So that contract dissolve as soon as you spot the fraud, right? Any statements, comments, questions on anything? That was my presentation for what I had for today. Now let's see who all we have in here, because matter of fact, I'm gonna stop the recording. Matter of fact, I'm gonna read a verse in the Quran, close out, and then I want to talk about the event on the 18th. I need a Spanish interpreter.
How big is it?
How big?
Yeah, long.
Oh, from 11 to 2.
No. The so you want to do the whole thing? That's what you're saying. Okay. Let me get back to you.
I'm trying to think. It's between you and Wordell, man. I'm trying to see. I mean, that would be great because, Santa Ana Zoo, it's going to be a lot of Mexican children. And how I got it drawn up, they're going to come by. I got the worksheets already printed out. And they're going to draw their own face underneath the fez, color the fez in. And then I wanted somebody kind of overseeing that. And then I wanted to talk to the parents and let them know what our organization is about. And, how we need to unite, et cetera. There's a way to do missionary work. And then I'm going to stamp their booklet and then they can get into the zoo for free. So, that's another thing. They can get into the zoo for free that day, wherever for anybody, any friends or family, just let me know if y'all want to go to the zoo for free on another level as well. All right. So we got chapter 10. Jesus spoke on the unity of Allah and man to the Hindus. Benares is the sacred city of the Brahms. And in Benares, Jesus taught. Udraka was his host. Udraka made a feast in honor of his guests, and many high-born Hindu priests and scribes were there. And Jesus said to them, with much delight, I speak to you concerning life, the brotherhood of life. The universal Allah is one, yet he is more than one. All things are one. By the sweet breath of Allah, all life is bound in one. So if you touch a fiber of a living thing, you send a thrill from the center to the outer bounds of life. And when you crush beneath your foot the meanest worm, you shake the throne of Allah and cause the sword of life to tremble in its sheath. The bird sings out its songs for men, and men vibrate in unison to help it sing. The ant constructs her home, the bee its sheltering comb, the spider weaves her web and flowers beneath. To them, a spirit in their sweet perfume gives them strength to toil or to work. Now, men and birds and beasts are creeping things, are deities made flesh. And how dare men kill anything? It is cruelty that makes the world awry. When men have learned that when they harm a living thing, they harm themselves, they surely would not kill or cause a thing that Allah has made to suffer pain. A lawyer said, quote, I pray to Jesus, tell who is this Allah you speak about? Where are his priests, his temples, his shrine? And Jesus said, the Allah I speak about is everywhere. He cannot be compassed with walls, nor hedged about with bounds of any kind. All people worship Allah, the one, but all the people see him not alike. This universal Allah is wisdom, will, and love. All men see not the triune Allah. One sees him as Allah of might, another as Allah of thoughts, another as Allah of love. A man's ideal is his God, and so as man unfolds, his God unfolds. Man's God today, tomorrow is not God. The nations of the earth see Allah from different points of view, and so he does not seem the same to everyone. Man names the part of Allah he sees, and this is to him is all of Allah. And every nation sees a part of Allah, and every nation has a name for Allah. You Brahmins call him Parabum. In Egypt, he is Thoth, and Zeus is his name in Greece. Jehovah is his Hebrew name, but everywhere he is the causeless cause, the rootless root from which all things have grown. When men are afraid of Allah and take him for a foe, they dress him up, other men in fancy garb, and call him priests, and charge them to restrain the wrath of Allah by prayers. And when they fail to win his favor by their prayers, to buy him off with sacrifice of animals or birds. When man sees Allah as one with him, as Father Allah, he needs no middleman, no priest to intercede. He goes straight up to him and says, my Father God Allah. And then he lays his hand in Allah's own hand, and all is well. And this is Allah. You are, each one, a priest just for yourself. And sacrifice of blood, Allah does not want. Just give your life in sacrificial service to all of life, and Allah is pleased. When Jesus said thus, he stood aside. The people were amazed, but strove among themselves. Some said, he is inspired by holy Brahman. Others said, he is insane. Others said, he is obsessed, but he speaks as devils speak. But Jesus tarried not. Among the guests was one, a tiller of the soil, a generous soul, a seeker after truth, who loved the words that Jesus spoke. And Jesus went with him, and in his home abode. All right, so that was chapter 10 of the Circle 7 Holy Quran. And we see the principles within this chapter, right? It's not something outside of yourself. It's not about the fancy garbs. It's not about anything carnal, right? We all connected to Allah. Just by being humanitarians, we're in alignment with nature's law. So we need to strive the best we can, and just like forming these brotherhoods. Teaching people about their nationality and birthrights. Promotion of community, promotion of togetherness. Right, that's in harmony with nature. Because we just trying to get our people to be human, right? And that's a noble act. That's in harmony with nature. I just wanted to share that, and then I'll close out with prayer. And I want to talk more about the event on the 18th. Allah, Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation by night and by day. Through his holy prophet, Noble Jew Ali. Amen. All right, so let me stop the recording right quick.